Barton. I'm the founder of the Grand Plans online community and podcast. Thanks for being with us today. In the studio today, we have Kerry Speckman. She is a local writer and podcaster and everything extraordinaire here in Jacksonville, Florida. She's going to take us through some of her stories and lessons that she gleaned from the passing of both of her parents and some of the, the things that she's learned from those experiences. So look forward to introducing you to her in just a second. Hi, my name is Susanna Barton, and I am the host of the Grand Plans podcast. And today I am very thrilled to have Kerry Speckman here in the new studio.
It's lovely, by the way.
Well, thank you. Well, and we also have Dot here with us today, the French pointer, the 15-year-old French pointer. But anyway,
she looks great for her age.
Yes. Well,
I thought she was a puppy.
Good. She can't see us, but she can feel our presence. Anyway, this is season 2, episode 4.
Impressive.
And we've got Kerry Speckman. Kerry and I have known each other quite a while.
Quite a while, yes.
She is a local writer. She's been on the radio. She's a podcast host herself. She's done a lot of things.
We're on hiatus.
Yeah, and an editor.
Copy editor, not podcast editor.
Kerry can do a lot of everything, and I've always respected her work, and she makes me laugh.
Same right back at you, lady.
Yeah. So anyway, we've got Kerry here today, and Kerry's going to share her story of dealing with loss and all the grand planning sometimes it goes into some of these experiences. So Kerry, thank you for joining us today.
I am delighted to be here.
Well, thanks. Well, tell us a little bit about your situation. I think you and I kind of track in some ways on the parent loss front. You and I both lost our moms before we were 20. You were 14.
Yes. How old were you?
20.
Okay.
Yeah. Leaving a dad,
a totally bewildered and
yes.
What am I going to do?
Yeah. Dads don't know how to do it. I mean, my dad didn't either. He did all the things.
Yeah. My dad did the things that he had to do,
yes.
But I mean, he didn't cook. The only one thing he could cook was, can I say shit on a shingle?
Yes, you can say shit.
Shit on a shingle?
Sure.
Are you familiar with that?
Yes. Shit on a shingle.
Shit on a shingle was like his masterpiece, but usually it was pizza, order out pizza or some just meat products.
Yeah.
In a pan.
Yeah. Well, those dads, they live on a different planet.
They do.
But I think what happens when you lose one parent is that the other one at least takes care of the funeral, all the stuff that the other parent leaves behind.
Exactly.
There's one more adult to take care of it, and it's not you. It's it's the other parent.
Yes.
Which is different when the second parent passes away, because then it's all on you or their spouse.
In my case,
your new spouse.
It was on the second spouse. And in fact, that was one of my major issues with his death, was that I felt like it didn't happen to me.
Right. Well, tell me a little bit about this, about your dad's passing. It was 2 years ago, right?
It was 2/22/22.
Oh, wow.
That's 1 year ago. What? Oh, I know. But 2/22/22 is very convenient to remember.
Yes.
So he had congestive heart failure. So I don't know what you know about that, but it's a long term.
Right.
And it's fatal, terminal. I don't know what they call it. But so he had been progressively getting worse and worse and worse. Plus he had other issues. He had like some kidney failure, not to the point that he needed to
Please silence your phone.
I didn't. Sorry.
I'm just kidding. No. So he had
several health issues.
Okay.
The most significant one was congestive heart failure.
Okay.
And so he was going down and down and down and down.
And just to clarify. He's living down in the villages, right?
He lives in lived in the villages, yes.
Right.
And I live in Jacksonville. So I would go down there, I don't know, once a month or so. And then when he started getting sicker, I would try and go down more often. And then it got to be where, like, my brother lives in the villages also. So he would tell me, like, yeah, Dad he's not getting around very well, or he was falling a lot. That was a big deal.
And did he have home health?
No, he didn't, because he didn't. I don't even know what I'm talking about. No, he did not have home health. But so when he falls, he was 86. My stepmother is 82. She can't pick him up.
Right.
So she would wind up calling my brother at 2 a.m. and his wife to come over and pick my dad up.
Okay.
And that happened numerous times, because she was in denial that something that wrong was going on.
Right.
And so she didn't see the need to have home health care. Apparently, I found this out years later, that she was offered hospice earlier, and she just outright refused it.
All right. Well, let me just also interrupt here by saying hospice would have been perfect for that situation.
Well, he did get into it only.
But early on, I think
he would have benefited from it so much, not just with all the services they provide, but also counseling for your family. And she could have used that also, and medication that you can get from them that you can't get elsewhere because you're a hospice patient.
Right.
And she denied it, which like I said, I didn't know that at the time, and I was not happy when I found that out. The only reason he got on hospice is because he had to get a not ventilator. What do you call those things? That oxygen.
Yeah.
Oxygen. And what he needed, they weren't able to provide. It was like something that you would have to have in a hospital. Okay. So the doctor's like, the only way we can give you this is if you go on hospice. So that's the only reason he went on it.
Wow. I mean, I just will say hospice is
oh my God, they were
everything, and it's all free.
Yes, they were so amazing, so amazing. And so she was just, like I said, in total denial. So I went down this one particular week when my brother said he doesn't seem like he's doing very well. And so I'm like, well, I'll just go down. And I kept having these, I don't know what the opposite of an epiphany is, but like a dread. It would just hit me like, today's the day. I know today's the day. And I kind of started getting into art at the time, and that was kind of helping me get through all this, process this. And I would like write myself notes and write down dates. And so I just had this, it just kept getting stronger and stronger and stronger. So I went down, I guess it was February or maybe the end of January. This was 2022. And it was like, yeah, he's not doing well. But I had planned, like, I'll stay longer if I need to. I was there for a month.
Oh, just on the fly. Like, you went down.
I went down with like 2 days, 3 days worth of clothes. At least I brought my computer, but I wound up, he just went downhill so fast that, and I was sleeping on a couch that wasn't even big enough. It's like, I couldn't, I mean, my brother lives there, but I couldn't very well go stay with him when my dad's dying, and Carolyn, my stepmother, needed help. And so it was difficult on many, many levels. I don't remember the point of what I was trying to say.
How did you and your stepmom split responsibility at that point? Was it tricky with having a relationship that's not, your mom?
She is a control freak, number one. And whenever, like, if my dad would ask for something, like, can I have some Diet Coke? And I would go get it, she would come running in from the kitchen to hand it to him. Like, she wouldn't let me do anything. I mean, she eventually had to, because she couldn't do it herself.
So it was a little power struggle, maybe?
Totally. And again, with her being in denial, she was not acting as if he's dying. Right. And she was still trying to feed him ice cream, and I would have to sit there and listen to her. This is going way off topic. Not really, but she would she would put like pudding on a spoon, and like, you know, when you feed a baby and you go like, in your tummy, yummy, yummy, in your tummy, and she would do that over, and I'm just sitting there cringing, and she's from West Virginia and has a very prominent accent and a screechy voice, and I'm just sitting there next to his bed where I was pretty much all the time listening to her yummy, yummy in my tummy, and like pretending it's an airplane, and just saying, Bill, you have to eat this so you can get strong and you can get better and we can go out dancing. And I don't know that she really believed that was going to happen, but she was certainly behaving as if he was going to get up. You know, we're going to go for a walk. You're going to get better and we're going to go walk down the block. And she would just put all these things in his head, which I know just from my experience and, you know, life in general, that when someone is actively dying, which he was, anything you do to keep them alive is not helpful.
Right.
The body is trying to break down. I'm no medical professional, but
wait.
I did play one once in a play in second grade.
No, but was hospice helping you through this at all, and your stepmom, like, to tell you some of those things that's so true? You know, when someone
she's trying to feed him, and like I think I told you this before we started talking officially on microphones, that she would I would say things like, she would talk to him, say, Bill, you have to get better, and she would leave the room, and then she would leave the room, and then I would say to him, Dad, you don't have to be here anymore. It's time for you to go. Billy's my brother, we're going to be fine. Carolyn's going to be fine. Look, go find Mom. Mom's waiting for you. Yeah. Go find her. So every time Carolyn would leave the room, I would have to like counteract what she's saying with the get better and let's go for a walk down the block, with me saying, and sometimes this sounds terrible to laugh, but it was funny because sometimes he was like conscious and with it.
Yeah, was he responsive to you?
The whole time until it got to the very end when he was on just morphine and was just sleeping all the time. Right. But he was totally with it, except every once in a while he'd wake up and he'd say, "Am I dead yet?" Or he'd wake up and say, "Am I still alive?" Like, "Yes, Dad, you are, but you don't have to be." So she would, and then she wasn't giving him his morphine as instructed. And so hospice was really great for that, because she's not a person you could tell anything to anyway. And it's in her head, he's getting better. So what am I possibly going to say? So I would have to tell the nurses, this is what's going on. And then they would have to explain to her, you know, this is why you give him the morphine, because the body is breaking down. And so at one point she wasn't, and I know she wasn't giving it to him because I was sitting there I slept on the couch next to him. I sat in the chair next to him. We had a hospital bed in the living room, which was from hospice. Bless them for that. And I forgot what I was talking about. Yeah, so
they would come in and coach.
They would come in, and she would say, "Are you giving him the more?" Because the nurse touched, like, she was checking his toes, and he screamed, and he was like out of it before that, but he screamed, and there's no reason his toe should have hurt, except that he's starting to die. And so the nurse said, "Have you been giving him the morphine that, you know, as directed?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, I give it to him every 2 hours." And I stood behind her and I was shaking my head. And then when Carolyn went back, I said, "She's not giving it to him." And she's like, "I know she's not. I can tell, because he just yelped like that. I've never heard him yelp that way the entire time I've been coming here."
Right.
And that's why. So it was just me having to fight against her trying to keep him alive, which is not going to happen, and just prolonging the agony of it. And
was your brother helpful in this?
That was
situation?
Another level. My brother, he lived there. How long has he been there? 4 or 5 years. So for 4 or 5 years, he's been in the thick of it. You know, he's
the one getting up and
he would get calls at 2 a.m. Not even kidding. 2 a.m. from Carolyn. "Billy, your dad fell. Can you come over and help me pick him up?" And so, I mean, he would get calls all the time.
Right.
And he shouldn't even be getting up to go to the bathroom. If that's what's happening when he's getting up, he's falling all the time, maybe he shouldn't be getting up.
Right.
But again, that's her denial, like, oh, he's fine, he can get up, he can go to the bathroom. My brother, not good with hospitals, sickness, death. Not like, some people love it.
Yeah, right. But some people are better at it, I think.
He is not at all. He can't. Mm-hmm. And when he came and saw my dad, he came and saw him 2 times while I was there after hospice had come in and put the hospital bed. And it was just, and like, my dad was my brother's hero. Like, he grew up, they did everything together. They played golf together. They played football. They were like best buddies. Mm-hmm. And so for him to see his dad kind of shriveled down to like nothing, and he was still coherent and everything, mm-hmm. but it just, he couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
And he left. The second time he left, he texted me and he said, "I'm sorry, but I can't do that again. Mm-hmm. I'm done. I'm sorry to leave you with this, but I just can't." So he did not come back. And then I had to listen to Carolyn scream at me about, why is my brother not coming over? Mm-hmm. And we call him and tell him to get over here. And then she would say to my dad, "You miss Billy, don't you? You want Billy to come over here, don't you? You want Billy to come see you, don't you?"
No, that is rough, because everyone has their capacity.
Exactly. And I don't begrudge him and what happened at all. I'm much better suited for that. In fact, I say all the time, I don't know how I did that for a month. I really don't.
In retrospect, when you look back on it, I mean, there are life things where you're like, how did I do that?
Yes.
But what do you think it was that was pulling you through? Like, can you look back on it? And
you don't have a choice.
Yeah, you don't have a choice. That's right.
I mean, you don't have a choice, especially when the other person, the other adult in the room is mm-hmm. not behaving like an adult.
Yeah.
Then, she when they brought in the hospital bed, she screamed at the guy who brought it in so he wouldn't scratch her floor.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, "Carolyn, he's just trying to help." And then she screamed at me. I mean, she would have some wine at night, and then she would scream about other stuff. Mm-hmm. It was, yeah.
That's a rough time. And how long was he languishing?
I was there about a month, and when I first got there, he was not in the hospital bed. So mm-hmm. maybe and every night I would go to sleep next to him, 'cause I could hear the oxygen machine, and, he would cough and, "Are you okay?" And so every night I go to sleep, and I would just wish, please let him pass in his sleep. Mm-hmm. I don't want him to have to go through another day of this. I know it's coming. Can we just get this over with?
Yeah.
And every morning I'd wake up, and then he'd be awake. Mm-hmm. And it's a weird feeling to wish that your parent wouldn't wake up.
Yes. It's a horrible feeling, but it's also it's weird, because it's like the right thing to want for them.
Right.
And that they would want the same thing. But you have it's like, oh, but you take a step back, and am I really wanting that?
Yes. And I was. Mm-hmm. And then the hospice nurse would come in, because we had the same one, and she said, "Oh yeah, it's probably going to be 1 or 2 days." And she said that 5 different times. Mm-hmm. And he just kept, I don't know if it was because she kept feeding him, or he just wasn't ready to go.
Yeah.
And she would say things like, "He's waiting on Billy to come back and see him." No, he's not. And I explained to my dad when Carolyn left, Billy is not here, not because he doesn't love you, mm-hmm. and not because he doesn't want to be here. He just cannot emotionally, mentally be here. He can't, it's hard for him to see you like this.
Yeah.
And he understood, mm-hmm. but it's so much stuff. And then it brings up all the stuff with my mom.
Right.
Because my mom had cancer, and she was sick for 4 years, total. And again, I don't know if you have this, maybe because I was younger, it's a little different, mm-hmm. but I have so many periods of time, blackout periods of time, that I just don't remember. I don't remember Carolyn ever living in our house, ever. Mm-hmm. I don't remember that. She would say that she used to force us to eat salad. I don't even remember you being there, let alone making us eat salad.
Yeah. Well, I think the brain protects or our minds protect our emotions sometimes by just shutting out some things that
Exactly.
aren't
And I
important.
like high school, people talk about this from high school and this, because I was in 10th grade, I think. People would talk about, oh, remember this from high school? Remember that? Nope, no recollection.
Yeah.
Not at all. Like,
Well,
I just don't even remember.
That's an interesting thing too, or phenomenon. You know, people our age are just now starting to lose parents.
Right.
But when you lose a parent early on, especially at age 14, I would guess,
which is
you
already
feel like
awkward
a total
enough.
freaking weirdo.
Yes.
Because it's not happening to anybody.
No.
In fact, I mean, just even now with, you know, my dad died 2 years ago, and it still felt a little weirdo-ish. Like,
yeah.
am I the only one around here who's losing parents like this? Because I mean, eventually, of course, it happens to everybody.
Exactly. But yeah, and I did feel, I couldn't have put into words how I felt, but I just remember I didn't want anyone to talk about it. I didn't want anybody to say anything to me about it. And like my friends left a card in my locker. I do remember that. And I was just like, I was kind of mad that they left it. So I was also very closed off. I don't see, that's the thing, is I don't know how I was before my mom died. Like, I don't know how much of her death shaped who I am now. Tremendously, I would imagine. But I had some significant walls after she died and did not want to talk. And that's how I was raised too. Like, we just didn't talk about stuff. We didn't cry. There were times that my dad would tell me, don't cry in front of mom. Don't cry in front of her. You're going to make her sad. You have to be strong for mom. Oh, I'm 11 years old.
That. I hate it. My dad did that to me.
Did he?
God bless him. But when my mom died, he said, we need to be strong for your grandparents. Don't cry. Don't cry. Don't cry.
Yeah, don't cry. And then even 20 years later, have you ever read the book Motherless Daughters?
No. Yes.
Oh my God.
Talk about epiphanies. That was one for me where I was like, wait, there are other people out there who don't have moms.
Yes. And how it was broken down, like how it changes your life when your mom dies at different ages.
Yes. Right.
And I mean, there's no good age, but
no.
14 is really not a good one.
That's a pivotal time, Kerry.
Yeah. Fortunately, I did get my period while she was alive.
Thank God.
Because that would have been...
Did she hold up a pair of underpants and slap a pad in the middle like my mom did? This is how you do it. Oh, thanks.
No, mine were more like she had it all ready. It was like all in a paper bag because she was always ready for everything. In a paper bag with the pads that were so thick and like the underwear, but it had a plastic.
Oh God!
Like crotch.
We've come a long way.
Oh my God! And it had you had to loop the. It didn't stick.
Was it a belt?
No, it wasn't a belt, but
because those are from the 60s, and I was going to have to reevaluate your age situation.
No, but it was a belt, but in underpants.
Okay.
Underpants. I just say underpants. It was very, anyway, thank whoever.
Well, thank God your dad didn't have to talk to you about pads and stuff.
Oh, I know what I was going to say. So Motherless Daughters, when I was reading that book, it triggered so many things, and that's not a word I like to say, but it did.
Yeah.
With my mom, and then also my grandmother, my dad's mom, but I was very close to her too. Mm-hmm. And I remember talking to my dad one time and just telling him I was reading this book, and it was really helpful to me. Again, we didn't talk about feelings.
Yeah.
So, he's like, oh, that's nice. And I said, I just feel like this is explaining a lot of how I feel. And then I started crying. And it was not long after my grandmother died, his own mother. And he said, what are you crying for? And I said, because I'm sad. Well, about what? I said, I'm sad because it reminds me of grandma. It reminds me of mom. It just reminds me of lots of things that make me sad. Well, crying's not going to bring them back. He would, this is as an adult. He was saying this to me as an adult. You can't, crying's not going to make anything better.
No, it makes you feel better in the moment.
But I went my whole, until I started seeing a therapist when I was in college, and even beyond that, that's how I went my whole life, is that I just didn't cry. And in fact, I was very proud of myself when I wouldn't, like, I remember going to see Steel Magnolias and everybody in the audience was crying. And I was like,
oh God, there was another one that made me cry. Barbara Hershey was in the movie.
The Wind Beneath My Wings, that one?
Yeah.
With Bette Midler?
Yes. And she was like dying and like, this is awful. And
yes. But I was just sitting there like, I'm not crying. This ain't nothing. This has happened to me in real life. Yeah. So you all are a bunch of babies. And I just wouldn't, that was not, if people who know me now would never believe the way that I used to be.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't even want people hugging me. I just didn't want any interaction. Not like, I mean, wasn't hiding or anything, but just any overt signs of emotion I didn't want anything to do with.
Well, tell me what happened. So after your father passed away, what were the after effects of that in terms of just closing down a chapter of life? Because now they're both gone. Did you have to reckon with or deal with stuff, or like, I know you have your stepmom still around, but what was the immediate after effect? Did you feel relief at all? Or?
I felt complete relief when my dad died. In fact, Carolyn, she rarely left the house. That was the other thing. I felt like I was a prisoner in their house. I couldn't go anywhere because I had to be there to help. I had no one to vent to. I would a couple times go out and sit in my car, but I had to like say, oh, I need to go out and get something out of my car, and then call somebody, Liz, real quick, and be like, girl, I have to vent.
It's too bad you didn't smoke. That would have been good.
I do smoke marijuana. I do have a medical.
Talking about the siggy liggies.
Yeah, I don't do that. So that was a challenge. I couldn't vent anything to anybody. I was just like a prisoner, and I knew he was suffering, and I just wanted it to be over. So I was relieved when same thing with my mom. Yeah. I mean, my mom was the same exact thing. She had started with breast cancer and then got into her hip, and then she had her stomach. And so in the end, she was just like on morphine, and same exact thing as my dad. Yeah. So then that just kind of brought all that stuff back. Yeah. And yeah, it's not fun.
So there's relief. And then moving on, I mean, were you came back to Jacksonville, I'm assuming?
Yeah. Well, when he actually died, Carolyn didn't leave much, but she went to Publix, and he died. I had fallen asleep, and people say this a lot, that people who are dying sometimes don't want people to be around when they don't want them to have to see it, so they wait. So I was sitting in the chair next to him, and I fell asleep, and then and she was at Publix, and I turned around to like check on him, and I would sit there and like hold his hand and squeeze his hand, and like he would squeeze it back, and he didn't squeeze it back, and then I got up, and I couldn't really. He had the oxygen, so I couldn't tell, whether he was breathing, and I like was checking his pulse, but his pulse was so faint anyway all the time. And then this sounds so weird, and I don't know why I did this, but when you're in these circumstances, you just do things. Yeah. His mouth was still kind of open, and so like I touched his tongue, like to see if that was going to tell me if he was alive or not. I don't know why, but that touching his tongue, I was like, okay, he's dead.
Oh my goodness. And you were alone with him?
Yes. And I was alone. And then Carolyn comes back with the groceries. How's the patient?
Oh no.
Yeah. And then I have to be the one to tell her. Yeah. And then I have to listen to her go on and on about it's all her fault. She shouldn't have left. He wouldn't have died if she didn't leave, which ridiculous. But so now, again, like I said at the beginning, I never felt like I was treated that this was happening to me. I felt like I was a nursing assistant that was just working there, because she never talked to me about being sad or I'm going to miss your dad or how are you going to feel, or there were no conversations whatsoever at all. In fact, she would make decisions. I was not involved in anything, including his final wishes, which he wanted to be cremated. He wanted to have half go with my mom and half go with Carolyn. And so he didn't want a ceremony. He didn't want a service. He didn't want anything. He just wanted to be cremated and have his ashes put with my mom. Carolyn could do with hers. Well, Carolyn never said to me or my brother, when do you want to put the ashes down? She just took over the whole thing and decided that, he died in February. She said, well, we're going to do it on Father's Day. Why am I going to do it on Father's? First of all, why are we waiting from February till June? Yeah. Father's Day is June, right? Or is it May?
Yeah, middle of June sometime.
Why are we waiting? And she's like, because it's a special day. Oh, so we can make a special day worse by sprinkling his ashes on my mom's grave. Yeah. So then it got changed because the roofers were coming. Then it moved. Then she decided to make it his birthday, which was October. So by October, all he wanted was his ashes to be with my mom. It is October now. And so this is where we had conversations, like heated conversations. And I like broke down to her and just said, I don't feel like anybody's listening to me. I mean, I'm having such anxiety knowing that the only thing my dad wanted was to have half of his ashes with my mom. And it is now October. And he's still not where he wants to be. And I'm having a really hard time with this. Yeah. And it's causing me major amounts of anxiety. Like I was crying on the phone to her and everything. She didn't care. Didn't care. And so I wound up, she postponed it one more time. So it was postponed 3 times. It happened sometime in October. Funny enough, I mean, I hadn't talked. I even sent her a card and like just said, just to follow up our conversation, I just feel like I'm not being heard. And this is what my dad wanted and I don't feel like it's being fulfilled and blah, blah, blah. Never heard from her. I wrote this very heartfelt card expressing how I felt. Not a word, not a phone call, not an email, nothing.
And that was it?
That was it. And then until I was on a Zoom call with my therapist and my phone rings, which I always turn it off. Phone rings and I look at it and it says Carolyn. Oh. And I'm like, I'm not answering that. So turns out she was at the cemetery where my mom is with her daughter and her son-in-law because she invited them. It was supposed to be a service. She invited her whole family to come, but they didn't drive up from the villages. But anyway, she called me from the cemetery and this was the message. It was, Kerry, it's Carolyn. I'm a cemetery. I need to know where I need to know. You need to know. I need to know where your mom's buried. I can't find it. We've been walking around here for 15 minutes and we can't find it.
Oh, that's heartless.
And I just, are you freaking kidding me? And then after that, her daughter texted and said, hey, I'm with mom and we can't find your mom's grave. And can you call us back? No. Well, first of all, no. Second of all, no. Yeah. Third of all, even if I wanted to help you, how am I supposed to explain to you where a grave is in a graveyard?
And as you're explaining it to me, the biggest missing piece of the conversation is having you there, and your brother.
Right. Well, Billy, she that was the one she kept saying, well, she wouldn't plan it until she knew if Billy was going to come. I said, Billy's not coming. Well, did you ask him? I don't have to ask him. I know he's not coming. He's told me he's not going to come. Yeah. Well, that's just ridiculous. I need to hear it from him. I'm like, well, you're not going to hear it from him because they're not speaking.
Well, that's a whole other layer, Kerry.
There are many layers.
Well, I think when you have step parents and the communication is weird and you've got all that stuff going on, that is
and we were never, I mean, to be fair, we were never close to begin with. She came in when I was not ready for someone. I mean, my dad waited 5 years to get married. It wasn't like it happened right away, but he did I'll never get married again. Yeah. We'll never move from this house. It's where your mom lived. And then he started dating her. I'm like, you said you would never date anybody. Yeah. So I automatically didn't like her. Yeah. But then even over time, it's just, we don't have anything in common. We just never had a bond ever. We just didn't.
Well, and
now we really don't.
Right.
But the problem now, it's not even a problem anymore because I've kind of just given up on it. There are a lot of things of my dad's that were supposed to go to my brother, like a lot of sports memorabilia stuff that my dad collected for 50 years, probably longer than that. And it was just always known that was for my brother. And he'd always say, when we die, all this is yours. He would say that all the time.
Right.
And Then I also know there was a closet that was full of pictures and films, like the old timey films.
Your old family things?
Yes. And she would refuse to ever open the closet. She wouldn't let us see in there. And we have not gotten one single. We got a box. We both got a box. Mine had like 3 t-shirts in it, like cards that I had sent him when I was younger. Just random gifts that I had given him. Like I bought him an Amazon, like Alexa, a Dot. She gave that back to me. She gave me like gifts I gave him back. And then Billy got a box with just like grandpa sandals he would never wear, like shirts with stains on them.
Ew. Well, Kerry, all that stuff, like now in looking back, retrospect, and it's only been, it sounds like, well, less than 2 years for you. Almost like if you're talking about
2022, February.
Then it's...
I haven't spoken to her.
It's been a while. I mean, not been a while, but has anything gelled in your mind where now you've been able to take your experience and help others? Like we have a mutual friend.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Stuff. What's your, have you synthesized it all and taken anything out that you can give to somebody else and say, you know, this may be helpful, or this is what I learned, or...
Well, I can say, as you already mentioned, if hospice is an option for someone, take it for many reasons. Take it. They also offer therapy. They didn't work down there. I didn't have the opportunity to do that, but I have a therapist anyway. But take advantage of what they have, what hospice has. Reach out to other people. People don't, I mean, I was so consumed with everything, but not everybody knew what was going on. So don't keep it to yourself.
Yeah.
Reach out to other people, especially people who have been through it. And then even like for Liz, our mutual friend, her dad died like 2 weeks after mine. So we were going through it at the same time. So it was, you know, we would both feel bad about, I don't want to talk about my stuff when you're having this going on, but it's okay because you need to talk about it.
So in grief, let it go. Just
let
her rip.
Let her rip.
Yeah.
Let it
Stop
go.
being so polite or thinking about other people.
Become an artist.
Yeah.
I just decided I'm going to become an artist, and
Yeah.
I just started painting stuff and partially out of my grief. And
yeah, well, that's great. Got to have an outlet. Well, last question to ask you, and I asked Liz the same thing when she was. She came in to visit.
Not in this fancy studio.
Yeah. Well, we were talking about. So you have cats.
I have two
cats, and they're your babies.
They are my babies.
So looking ahead, I know Liz is the same situation. Well, she's got
one baby,
one baby
cat,
and one husband.
One husband.
Yeah.
Well, 2 babies.
Yeah. But looking ahead, how has this whole experience informed your thoughts about future plans for yourself as you get older?
It's so tricky because I'm single. So I don't really have to not worry about it. Like, I'm gone. It's not my problem, and it's nobody else's problem. Like, I don't have a husband. Well, we have to do all this stuff.
What about help? Like, you might need help, though. You might need a little extra something that your cat cannot offer.
They offer me things that no one else can.
They're positively the best helpers.
They are.
Seriously, though, like, we all will get to a point where we need a person.
Yes. Get yourself a person.
Yeah. Have you thought about who your person might be or how that's going to work?
Yes. I think my aunt is my like whenever I had a living will, I don't know where it is.
Yeah.
I have a will. I don't know where that is either.
Yeah.
Shocking.
Well.
It's in some safe deposit box somewhere, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But my aunt is the one that would be in, like to pull the plug or any of those, because my brother there's no way my brother could do it.
Right.
As previously discussed.
I think that's so gracious of you to know what his strengths are, by the way, like have an honest
and I know some people are like, I can't believe he would just but you have to understand the relationship they had, and also that he had been doing this for 5 years, and I just was
it's your turn.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I knew he hated hospitals. Like he just also, like when my mom was sick, some people can't handle it.
Yeah.
He can't, funerals, he can't do it. I have gone to so many funerals on behalf of him, which is fine. I'm happy to do it. I mean, not happy, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
you like the socializing opportunity?
Oh, I really do. It's such a great time to get to chat with people.
Yeah. Well, it's good to recognize people's strengths. And, I think sometimes these things happen to us in our lives, and we just need to figure out how to apply it to help other people through things and ourselves down the road. So.
Definitely therapy. I know hospice has, I think, 12 or 13 months for any family member after the death of a patient.
Deep well of resources.
Yes.
Hospice.
And there's still such a stigma with mental health, even though like grief isn't necessarily, traditionally mental health, but there's still such a stigma with people seeing a therapist.
Yeah.
Or asking for help.
Yeah.
And it's so frustrating. Though I was one of those people myself. I don't need any help from anybody. I don't want to ask I still don't like to ask people for favors. I want to be self-sufficient, and that's it.
Well, I think asking people is a gift to that person, because a lot of people want to help but don't know how.
Absolutely.
And they end up saying dumb things like, if there's anything I can do to help, please call me. And you're like, I literally cannot call you because I would hate to ask you for anything.
Exactly.
So just do it.
And your friends are your friend. Another thing is you find out who your friends are, which fortunately I didn't have like any bad situations, but there are times where there are friends that are friends are checking in on you. Like, how are you? Not just how's your dad, how's your brother, how are you, and what do you need and what do you need help with? And then other friends would just like check in on you, which is fine because that's all they can do. But then other ones just didn't. And I know everybody has their own life, but just get you a good person.
Yeah. I just heard someone say that a good question to ask someone who's grieving or going through something challenging is to ask, how are you doing today? Because that seems like a more reasonable answer that you can get your head around. Like, today,
or even maybe how are you doing at this moment?
At the moment, yes. Just drill down, because
it's easy to say, I'm fine. I'm fine. But I mean, all sometimes you need to do is ask the question twice. Like, are you sure you're fine?
Yeah.
And then that sometimes is enough for them to be like, no, I'm not fine.
That's like, release the Kraken. Here it goes.
Exactly. Cue the waterworks.
Yeah. Well, Kerry, it's been fun talking to you.
Susanna,
I mean, not fun.
Delight.
Well, it always is fun being with you, but I know the topic isn't exactly fun, but it is definitely enlightening. And I think all of these experiences, the more we share them, the more it helps people, and we can get ourselves through to the other side.
Yeah.
So great being with you.
You also. Thank you. And thank you for doing this podcast. It's something Liz and I talked about. Like, we need to write a book and talk about these things that people don't tell you.
Yes.
That you're going to go through and that are going to happen. They don't prepare you for these things. So I'm so grateful that you are doing this and helping people and talking about the things that people don't want to talk about.
Yeah, people don't want to talk about it, but
We
must. We must increase our bust. All right, Kerry, thanks for coming in.
Thanks, Susanna.
Bye. Thank you for joining us in the Grand Plans podcast today. You can find this podcast anywhere you find your podcasts, on Apple Podcasts or wherever else. And the best place to find them cataloged is on the Grand Plans website, which is mygrandplans.com. We're also on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Thanks for being with us today.